Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 130 of the PK Serenity podcast. And this week, we have not only raid testing to talk a little bit about, but a Dragonflight release date,
Which is in
which,
2022.
yes, and effectively confirms the leaked pre patch and release dates.
Yes.
Lines up exactly. So, we're going to talk about that today. But before we get into that, forgot to do introductions. I am one of your hosts, Emerson, as always, and joining me we have my co-host Namali.
Hello.
And yeah, besides that, we also had the Wrath of the Lich King launch this week. How is that gone, Namali?
It's gone. I guess we'll jump right into it. So Wrath has been so I'm on Fairlina, which is one of the major Horde server in North America.
Mm-hmm.
You also have Benediction,
Yep.
which is the major Alliance server. And I am really good at timing queues. So I will tell you, we record this podcast about 1:30 in the afternoon for me. At about 2:30, I will be jumping into queue as we're talking because that means my queue will pop right at 7:30 tonight when I'm ready to play. So queues have been bad, I'll say. But I mean, I think the actual launch is fairly like other than the queues, fairly uneventful. Everything seems to have worked. I think other than Wrathgate, which is a little bit upsetting. But Wrathgate, which is you guys aren't familiar with it, it's one of the major quest events in Dragonblight. About halfway through your leveling experience, it's where like one of the Horde professor people like betrays everyone and dumps a bunch of chemicals as the Horde and Alliance first confront the Lich King. And so there's a big event where like you fight the Lich King at Wrathgate, and then you go to the Undercity to like kill this bad Horde dude as both Horde and Alliance. It's a really cool quest line, but it was notorious for breaking. And in retail, they actually took it out of the game. Like I think the patch after it launched because they could never get it right. Like people would get stuck in the phasing. The event
Yeah.
would just end up breaking. And for if you're Horde and you get stuck in the phasing, it basically means that Ogremar and Undercity will no longer have any NPCs in it for your character. And like there's no way to I think if I don't even think abandoning the quest helps.
Yeah,
um
I
so
remember hearing about that. I missed
yeah.
actually doing the quest the first time, and maybe that's actually a reason, like a motivation for me to get on and like finish leveling my rogue, so I can go and do the Wrathgate quest line before they remove it.
Yeah, so they took it out of the game the past couple days, and I think they just put it back in. But there's still the option, so you can test it and say, "Hey, let me see if this works." And if it breaks, I think there's an NPC you can talk to now that just basically skips it and auto completes the quest for you.
Yeah, and
So they're
presumably
working, I think,
fixes your phasing.
exactly, and I think they're working on a way for like if you do use the skip for you to be able to go back and actually do it. Because I mean, the biggest part about the quest is like not only is it pretty epic to go as particular alliance to go to the Undercity and attack it, right? Which I think was really
Yeah,
cool. But it was one of the original in-game cinematics that they did.
yeah,
So I think we talked about this we were sort of leading up to the launch of Wrath, but like this was the first time, like in the middle of leveling, you like kind of broke out of just turning in quests and doing the next thing, right? Or even like
yeah,
the little RP events like while you're in game, but now you had like a cinematic of like this event happening, which was really cool. So sucks that it's broken, but it's cool that they're actually trying to fix it, which I think is cool. So
yeah. That
just
is really
funny.
cool. Especially like that is one of those things that I mean, there is not a lot of stuff that I didn't get to experience in terms of like casual questing content. I didn't get to experience the first time through
Mhm.
playing the game. That is one of the things. At that point in time, I was playing on private servers, and you bet your ass that if Blizzard could not get it to work, there is no way it was working
Yeah,
on a private server.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
those things
So
had bugs on bugs on bugs. Something like Wrathgate, just like it just auto complete. You
yeah,
got to see like the cinematic because it was just in the game files, and then it just
yeah.
completed.
Yeah, so it's I mean, hopefully they get it fixed. It sounds like they're trying to put some like actual engineering time into fixing it. So, but no, I mean, other than that, Wrath launch has been it's Wrath, right? It's to me, I think it's probably I think we've always, I mean, we've talked about this a bunch, but I think it's like the best balance of like not what vanilla was in terms of like grinding and like just slow, and not like what it is today, which is like on rails, just hold W and you have will complete and get your levels, right? There's still
Yeah.
some thought that goes into it. You're still like there's still some breaks you'll take in terms of like sitting, eating, drinking. There's still elite quests that you can't do. Although as a hunter, I've been able to solo, I think all but one so far, which has
Perks
been
of being a
nice.
hunter. Yeah.
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 But no, I mean it's been a blast. I'm 75 right now, like halfway through Dragon Blight, so I'm about to come
Yeah.
up on Wrathgate soon. I just been having a good time just leveling. Definitely did not do what Now did, who now was world
Yeah.
first 80. Um, and a little bit of controversy around it. But yeah, so I guess
I
the world
hadn't
first
heard
80.
anything about this, so walk me through it.
So he got world first 80. And basically leveled in about 9 hours, just under 9 hours, I think they said, from launch
Okay.
to him being 80, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so what he ended up doing, which is slightly controversial, I think, and I don't, to be fair to me, sort of borders on exploit territory. Um, but it's in the game, so he used it. Was there was a mob in Ice Crown that you could aggro, and it was a summoner mob, and it would summon a bunch of little ads. And if you tagged those ads, so and this is the key thing, you could tag the ads and fight them. But if the summoner summoned these ads on like a timer, so when he summoned the next set, he basically despawned all the current summoned ads and respawned new ones. The problem is those despawned ads, if you tag them, gave you full experience. So you didn't have to
Oh.
kill anything. I think the way it works, you basically just kept that summoner in combat, didn't kill anything, and then watched him summon and despawn ads. And
Oh
eventually,
no.
yeah, was a massive
Yeah.
amount of experience.
Yeah.
So
That's actually
I
worse than like the original. Like you remember people got banned for some leveling stuff back in original Wrath for
yeah,
doing exploits around dungeon resets.
yeah,
I mean, all right, maybe that is actually worse, but like,
yeah. And even some of the original, like the really push people in original Wrath, I feel like um got banned or got just timeouts for like mob tagging issues, right? Where you could basically tag mobs in a certain way and then have a group kill them but still receive full experience. Like that was a big
right,
exploit. I think the world first mage that did that, or I think it was a mage that did it. It was someone whoever got world first in the original Wrath did that to basically exploit like the tagging rules. Because typically, if you tag a mob and then someone else kills it, you're supposed to get reduced experience from that.
right.
So yeah, I mean, congrats to Now. I mean, first of all, figuring this out. Apparently, it's been in the game since like Wrath was released. So it's been there for like 15 years. No one and like most people knew about it, I guess, just nobody thought to use it. So but yeah, I mean it was grats to them. That was really fast. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what you do now that you're 80, but
You go
that
and you sit
quickly.
in Dalaran,
That's true.
and you show off.
Yeah, wait for your buddies to catch up so
Yeah,
you
you
can
go and you
do some
stand next to the
dungeons.
teleporter when everybody comes in that they're like level 72, like just unlocked Dalaran quest, and
Yeah.
they see you're level 80 and go, "What the fuck?"
That is true. But no, I mean Wrath in general. I mean, number one, congrats to Now world first. That's awesome. Just another, just crushing it as usual. This dude. But no, also Wrath has just been fun. It's just been a nice break. I will say I've done nothing on Dragonflight so far because I've been fully consumed with playing Wrath. So I probably need to start to not do that so much. But no, but yeah, it's been a good time. So
Yeah.
Wrath is fun. Wrath is fun.
I spent my whole week pretty much working on Wrath support for Starfall.
Hi. It basically the same
I have
thing.
played zero Wrath, but it was my work week. I have heard plenty about it.
Nice, nice, nice. Well, cool. I guess the one thing we didn't talk about, we sort of jumped right into it, but the raid week last week. How's your faded raids? One of our last times through
Yeah, Faded
Sepulcher.
Sepulcher. Um, so we got up through Anduin on Friday. It was a little bit of a 5 people just out in a night.
Ooh, yeah,
Um, which we run a fairly deep roster, so we were actually okay, but it was like okay, effectively everybody is in on everything.
yeah.
Um, and we had like our raid leader was out for the first hour of the raid night, so it took us
This
some
is
time to get through the like Zymox took us a ridiculous amount of time. We wiped on Skolex of all things of just like I mean, and this was a little bit of
Yeah.
we only had like a shaman, so
Yeah.
one Windrose Totem, and we wiped to a melee not quite reaching the stack in time to reset one of the wretches.
Oh god, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but then like Zymox took us just a long time, and it was a different person every time. I think it was a different mistake every time, but the common thread through all of them is just people not being honest, right.
Yeah.
People are kind of ready for Dragonflight, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think we had a very similar thing in our raid. Our issue though was Lords of Dread,
Yeah.
not really anything. And that fight, I hate that fight.
Yeah, me too. I'm doing it for the first time on Mythic on my mage tonight, so that's going to be an
Nice.
adventure. I have never done it as ranged on Mythic. I've done it heroic, and then I've tanked it on Mythic, but it's a very different experience being
Oh yeah.
ranged. Um,
Yeah, no.
there's also uh, I was having this conversation in guild. I'm starting to wonder whether the issues that we've seen with the faded affixes are really issues with the faded affixes, or whether they are actually issues with Sepulcher. Um,
Okay.
because like barrier, right? Barrier is like the freest affix. It is so just like pure upside, no downside. Very, very difficult for it to be bad. And there are two bosses that we've hit in um in Sepulcher where it just destroyed us. That is Livum uh and Anduin, because barrier breaks CCs.
Yes, 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 yes.
And so like
Well, it only breaks some CCs.
what what
Yeah. So we hit this with Anduin, and it breaks Hunter traps for sure,
Yep.
but it doesn't break paralysis, at least for us.
What?
Yeah, so like we on Anduin we wiped because so I myself and we have a monk tank. We do two of the side ads and then the hunter does the back one and we
We
kill it.
we have two monks. We have a Windwalker and a Mistweaver.
Yeah.
For the
And we're
first
still
time in
breaking.
ever, like we don't have a brewmaster.
Yeah.
But we have a
Yeah. So I paralysis one doesn't break, but the hunter trap did break for us, which was weird. And we
that's
wiped
insane.
the first thing on yeah. And they were like, "Oh, it breaks ads." And I was like, "Well, it didn't break paralysis because like I didn't have to recast it."
We had
But like,
to break um break traps on live. So what we ended up doing is we just had two people, like we were only getting one ad, right? We
yeah,
just
yeah,
had
'cause yeah, sweet.
we just like had one hunter trap it and the second hunter put a trap right in front of
Yeah, that's what we did.
it.
We basically called when the barrier was going off, and then like the second hunter would make sure their trap was down, and like that was it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah. It's
so it's just
we
like
have that. It's oh sorry.
all the bosses in Sepulcher are just like very, very, very tightly constructed in the sense that it seems like adding anything kind of like destroys the fight, makes it really
Yeah,
unintentionally difficult in a way that at least the early bosses and even some of the end bosses in other tiers that doesn't really apply to. Like you can add actually any of the affixes really to Sylvanas and play around it and it works. But then you do
yeah,
that um on Sepulcher, and even you know disregarding the jank with like the jailer bombs, right, or the
yeah,
live damage amp, even disregarding those things, it's just like difficult to find moments where you're allowed to go and soak them.
yeah. I mean that was our issue at Lords because like Lords, the way the timing works out, there's literally like two windows where new green circles aren't coming out and like sleep circles aren't coming out or something. And, like you don't have
Yeah,
fears. And so
yeah,
like you basically have to make sure there's nothing going on so you can just do these dispels. And then we found two. So just as a heads up, never dispel during the swarm phase
yeah,
because the dispels land above your raid group.
yeah. We somebody else clued us into that.
Oh,
You
it's
all
just
that are listening cannot see my just absolutely befuddled reaction there, but like I understand on some level, like the bosses are above, like they elevate there. They are not on ground level there. I
right,
don't know
right,
why
right.
that makes the soaks not ground level though.
I have no idea. So, but I mean, but other than Lords, our raid week was pretty easy. Like we wiped maybe one or two times with some other bosses. I think we one shot Anduin, two shot Ragallon, and one shot the Jailer. I think even
Nice.
like maybe two or three shot Halandris, which are those are typically our big ones.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, other than that, it was fine. It was fine. It was just Lords was like 15 wipes, I think, just like a slog.
Yeah.
And it was like it was mostly like number one, people like caring more about the faded affixes than just doing the mechanics,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like number two is like just finding spots to do the dispels, which I think as a healer is the most stressful thing. Cause like typically as a healer, I track like two major abilities in a fight. Cause like the
Yeah.
rest of the abilities, like I don't care when green circles come out because I'm melee. I'm never gonna get targeted by them. Like when the fear circles come out,
Yeah.
I don't care about that either. Cause if I get one, I'll know I'll just move out. It's not a big deal when that comes out. And so now I have to care about all that stuff as I do dispels. And it's like I go into like brain overload. I'm like, I don't know what
Yeah.
to do here.
There's also we haven't so we spent a number of pulls, I don't know exact numbers, on Zymox, Livum, and then Anduin actually I think had fewer pulls than either of those. Um
Nice.
but yeah, and like Livum was just again figuring out how to deal with the effects, like figuring out how to manage those CCs when we're like 300 yards away halfway across the room,
Yeah.
because of course the room is that big.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing that Blizzard could do differently is I think two things. Number one, it's either just make the affixes constant throughout the entire tier. So you only have to learn the fight one way.
Yeah.
Right. And like that way it's not like because right now this is like what the fourth different way we've done
Yeah.
these fights. And it's been at least 3 weeks since the last time we did it. So like there's
Yeah.
that big gap. So maybe like keep the affixes consistent or just don't have the 3 week break in between each time doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Right?
agree with
Like, I
that.
think I think if that was the case, like, at least then you get the repetition of doing lords every week and, like, you could
Yeah.
make some adjustments, but for now, it's like you have 2 weeks of not ever doing that fight where it's like
I I 100% agree with that. 100% agree with
yeah,
that. I would like them to bring back something like Faded. I would like it
yeah,
honestly to just not have the affixes. I want them like I'm going to say this again. I want the point 0.5 like I want 10.0.5 to come out
mhm,
and bring back Nighthold. And Nighthold, it has been just like it's been a long time. It
yeah,
doesn't need affixes,
yeah.
you
No,
know,
that's true.
or bring back, Hellfire Citadel, or bring back whatever, what's the first rate of WAD? Highmall,
I'm
you
all
know,
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, that would be cool. Like that yeah, that'd be interesting. Um, but I guess we'll see. I mean, I feel like Faded, like, this sort of idea becomes just a final phase thing or a final patch thing versus something they do in the middle, just because I don't know if there's enough time in the middle. I think that's the problem is like time wise, like is there
Yeah.
enough time to do
I
a
mean,
like to have a meaningful point 0.5 patch beyond just bringing the content back
yeah,
for a
that
couple
was
weeks?
like we were playing Guild, like, yeah, you're not gonna be able to get, CE Faded Nighthold or whatever unless they
Yeah.
do these like 8 month long patch cycles again, which we
Right.
don't want.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want the answer to, yeah, of course they do 8 month long patch cycles. That sucks. Um,
Yeah.
but I also think like they could bring it back and just not give a CE achievement for it. Like, not a big deal. Or, tune it a little bit lower. Maybe you just don't have a mythic difficulty, you know,
That's true.
or you bring back mythic difficulty and you just like the numbers are lower. Like they are in actual Faded right now. The numbers are all lower relative to our health, damage values.
Right.
Um so things that were damage checks, like there is no way we would be entirely skipping, the or almost entirely skipping the third set of cores on Rygolon in non-faded.
Yeah.
Damage check was too high.
Yeah.
But we're around there right now in faded. And it's not just because of the affixes, because last time around we mostly ignored the Rygolon affix.
Yeah. Plus they're all underneath, so like they're
Yeah.
difficult to make a huge amount of gain with. So
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, yeah, well, I guess we'll see what they do in, I guess, in Dragonflight, like when it comes back. But I think it's cool to like, kind of pull back in that old content. I've always said that is like there's so much content in the game that's just old that they could make new again,
Yep.
just in
Yep.
like short term things. It just has to be put into place in a way that doesn't make it seem frustrating because like that's what Lords was this week. It was like It was frustrating from the fact of, like, you going from killing something to not killing it and just wiping, and you're like, "This is not what I wanna do."
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So yeah.
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 I'm on board with that 100%. 100%. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Speaking of gigantic boss rooms, though, we
Oh,
had raid
okay.
testing this week, and they got
Oh,
some big ones.
that's what I heard. That's what I heard. So I guess I did not get a chance to do raid testing this week, but you did. And
Yep,
what, it was 4
five
bosses? Or
bosses.
5?
We have
Okay.
actually tested over half of the raid on heroic now, and there was supposed to be normal testing this week, but it got
Yeah,
pushed back to next weekend. So next weekend, normal is going to be open the whole weekend. You can hop on beta, have
I'm
beta
excited.
at any time, and test it out. Um, but it actually, aside from the first boss testing not starting until 30 minutes after the scheduled time, it was actually incredibly smooth.
Oh,
No
nice.
game breaking bugs. Um, there obviously is a whole lot of tuning left to do. Um, but the bosses all basically worked. There are some like the first boss that we tested, Aranog, is the first boss of the instance, and it's like Champions of Light level complexity,
Okay.
not tuning. Like it's not going to be like Champions of Light was, where you killed it in 50.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it is not very complicated. It's not got a whole lot going on. You just kind of do a lot of damage to the boss. And you know what? Maybe that's okay. This is also only on heroic. There are a couple more mechanics that get added for mythic.
Mhm.
But that kind of like lower mechanical complexity, actually, I would say applied like that kind of thing applied to all of the bosses that we tested this week, including the penultimate boss, Broodmother Diurna,
Okay.
um, which um, like I was tanking in raid testing because we have tanks, um,
Yeah.
and I actually kind of liked that one, and I was like, yeah, I've got a lot to do. There's a lot of stuff happening. There's the core conceit of that fight is you're fighting this boss in a room with a bunch of eggs, and she'll periodically hatch two of the nearest eggs, and then drop a lightning staff, and you have two of your players, take lightning from that staff and use it to hatch the egg early. So instead of getting a fully grown egg, you get like a
Oh, okay.
mini
Yeah.
ad that is easier to deal with.
Gotcha.
Um, and so I was like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to manage here. We got to get the positioning right. We got to get, and then there's waves of ads that come in and do things. And I was talking to DPS about it, and they're like, yeah, if you're not doing the lightning, there's literally nothing to do besides kill it. Like the ads, when the ads aren't up, it's literally just a target dummy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like, huh,
Yeah.
well, maybe. Uh,
Another adds ugh.
And the issue we ran into on that one is like there were 3 or 4 or 5 waves of ads just back to back to back to back to back, and then they stopped spawning for like a minute.
Gotcha. So it's like, yeah. Yeah, those I don't know. I don't know if I think I might be with a DPS even as a healer. Like,
Yeah,
I don't want to go through another like SLG type
yeah,
like ad fights. It's so chaotic, I'll
yeah.
say.
It was
Um,
definitely chaotic. Like there's a lot of caster ads on that fight, which are a huge pain to wrangle as a tank. Um,
yeah.
Upside, all of the casts are very important to kicks, so people would kick them or they would die. So that made it a little bit easier to group them up.
Yeah. I was there, I guess that's a question. Was there a lot of kicks to do? Like just
Uh,
across the bosses? Do you remember? Like any more like let's say
no.
more than you would normally see.
Two of the
Okay,
bosses
no.
had decent, like Broodmother Diurna had some very high priority kicks, like kick or die
Yeah.
kind of mechanics. Um, then there is Dathea Ascended, which had some kicks, but they're fairly like they're spam casting it. You can kick them, they'll cast it again 3 seconds later, kind of thing. Like low damage lightning bolt kind of things on some of the
Gotcha.
ads, but nothing too crazy. And the other 3 bosses didn't have any kicks at all.
Okay. Yeah, the only reason I asked is I wonder with the fact that a bunch of new specs get access to a kick, if they would like design around that idea.
Yeah, I think that maybe is giving them a little bit of confidence to do like there are at points on Broodmother, 3 kicks going off at the same time that must be
Gotcha.
kicked or you lose people effectively.
Gotcha.
Um,
Interesting.
and that's the kind of thing that we're at below heroic eye level doing Broodmother Diurna, right, with the scaling.
Yeah.
But it's the second to last boss, and will we be higher? Just from random drops during Heroic Week, plus Mythic Plus being uncapped, plus Mythic is actually opening at. We haven't talked about release
Talked
date
about
yet.
that. Yes.
Yeah, we'll
Yes.
get to that, I guess, more later. But Mythic is opening at the same time as Heroic. That's gonna be
Yeah.
fun.
Just
Uh,
yeah.
so yeah, it went smoothly. I actually think that like Aranog was very simple. The next boss, Taros, I actually like a lot. It I could
Hmm.
like go through and list every single mechanic is one that comes from a boss in Shadowlands. Every single
Oh,
one.
really?
It's got mechanics
Nice.
from Halandras, Kel'Thuzad, um,
God.
Sludgefist, Denathrius. Like,
Greatest hits.
well, Kel'Thuzad is not the greatest hit.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
But it is actually a very good fight. And then like Dithia is one that I am both excited and scared for. It's like a
Okay.
knockbacks matter kind of fight. Like the tank mechanic knocks you back, and it knocks you back farther each time you get hit by it. So
Oh,
you
okay.
gotta like reset your tank stacks, or you will literally get sent flying off of the platform. Uh, and then you kill this big ad that knocks everyone back, and
Wow.
you use that to get up on these other platforms and kill ads there.
Oh,
So it
cool.
literally like sends you flying. You go flying to another platform. You kill the ads there. You kill another big ad, and you get sent flying back to the main platform. Um, the reason that
Kind of like what was that? It was that was Blackhand's mechanic in phase 2 of Blackhand. Yeah.
I never so
Okay, for HFC, yeah.
yeah,
That's a well, you would like want to get bumped up into rafters to kill ads that were shooting down at you. You would
right,
want to send people up there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The issue that it has right now is that the range on the ad knockback is global, and that
Okay.
it does its knockback when it dies, which of course means that the time at which you get that knockback is highly variable.
Yes.
And so there's 2 ways that this can overlap with the tank mechanic, or I guess 3. It can either not overlap, so you just get knocked by the ad, and you go back to the boss. It's fine. You can get knocked by the tank mechanic and then get knocked by the ad, which is fairly manageable. You just get knocked towards the ad, and you get knocked back the other direction by the ad, and you're fine. And there's the
Mhm.
third one. You can get knocked by the ad and then knocked by the tank mechanic,
Yeah.
which just kills you.
Yeah.
Like,
Jeez. Yeah.
because the ad is going to knock you like through the boss, because the knockback is so big you have to be like on the side of the platform where the ad is. So you get knocked through
Right.
the boss, and then the boss punches you, and you continue flying off the edge.
Yeah. Cannot play that either. Yeah, that's going to be annoying. Those overlap like that. So.
But I mean, they can fix that by making the ad knock have a limited range, or like the knock strength falls off heavily after a point. Like
Yeah.
make it so there's like a circle around it that does the full strength knock, and then after that, it's more like a nudge.
Right. Yeah. If you're already fully, yeah, really out of range. No, that's fair. Well, cool. I mean, I guess I didn't get a chance to do it, but any of the testing. But were there any I guess in general, like boss wise, seem like a pretty good set of raid bosses, or
I
I know it's only heroic, so
Yeah,
tough to tell like what the mythic versions will look like. But I mean, is there an SLG style boss
Broodmother
right out
Diurna
there?
is the
Okay.
one that could be that.
Yeah.
Um,
Gotcha.
the um,
Well, it doesn't have wicked blade, so it won't be too
yeah, but
terrible.
the lightning thing was actually like kind of a pain in the ass to like. It's very difficult to tell whether you're like because the eggs aren't in a like very convenient pattern to
Gotcha.
like always have a pair of eggs that are really close. So sometimes like one is closer than another, and there's a max range on how far you can take the lightning from the staff that she puts down. And If you
Gotcha.
are too far away, you just don't get to break the egg, and so then you get
It's
the
a
full strength hatchling coming out. Um,
gotcha.
that was kind of, and then of course just the general like the cadence of the fight felt really with just like
Yeah.
adds nothing.
Yeah. But I guess that they could always clean that up
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Um, Gotcha. Did you notice any sort of, well, I guess tough to tell, but I don't know if you noticed any sort of like really weird spell queuing stuff?
Oh yeah,
Like a
actually on Taros. So
Oh,
Taros
really?
has this like Halandra style cadence where it's like he spawns some icicles, Kel'Thuzad. They can't be killed. Um, and they pulse AoE damage for as long as they're alive. But then you get a
Okay.
Halandra beam,
Ah,
and you use
okay.
that to break the icicles, and they do literally exactly what they do on Kel'Thuzad.
Right, can you take damage as a raid
Yeah,
with a dot?
yeah,
Backing dot. Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting.
And so the way we were doing it is kind of like you get spike spawn and then two beams and then spike spawn and then two beams, very very much the same as Halandros, where you get orb spawn, two sets of beams in that case, orb spawn, two
Hmm.
more sets of beams. um he spell queued one of his and just like skipped one of his twice in the same pull.
Oh, Jesus. So you need to
And
break more spikes. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like forcing you at that point into either breaking like six at once, except it was the first one, we didn't know it was going to skip the second one. Or
Okay.
letting there's a ravage that goes off that will break any remaining spikes in that area. So, imagine Kel'Thuzad spikes, but you have to heal through it while you're moving,
Oh.
which is probably not ideal.
Yeah, no, that sounds terrible.
Um,
It's awful.
and then of course I mentioned the thing on the Thea with like it's not spell queuing, but it's push timer nonsense of like it will
Right.
really suck if we have to like hard stop on the ad and then like execute it after the tank is safe from doing the tank mechanic. And then there's actually also other things with kill timers on that where like if you take a little bit too long to kill the ads upstairs, you get a stacking debuff while you're up there, like the one on Zymox, except it's not permanent. It only lasts
Right.
for a
Okay.
minute. So if you kill them quickly, then it resets before you do the next one. But if you kill them a little bit too slow, then it doesn't reset. And I mean, we were doing a min rate, like we had 10 people. So we were min
Yeah.
rate size. And basically it meant that if anybody died, we
Hmm.
were sending everybody over to kill them quickly so that the debuff would reset and everything would like work. If anybody died, that wasn't
It's in
happening. They
trouble.
weren't
Yeah.
going to get reset. So we tried switching to having it be half and half, but then that led to issues with um, like them getting too many stacks of debuff while they're over there. Plus,
Gotcha.
then the tank mechanic actually just like sends you flying so far so fast at some point that you cannot transcend back because you are out of range of it by the time
Oh,
that you can
wow.
push it.
That's crazy.
Like the knockback on um, the Mage Tower for Brewmaster, where like it it could, like if it was a full health Infernal there, it did its knockback, you would get sent flying so fast that you may not be able to transcend back because the game wouldn't register it in time.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Gotcha.
that's the reason I said I'm excited but scared for that fight. Like it seems like a cool fight, but it's got a lot of issues to work out.
Yeah. You don't. You get knocked up and then you jump down. You don't get like knocked through a floor, right?
Uh, say that again. Oh no,
So you don't like.
you get knocked up and then over. It's like a
Okay. Okay.
big.
Okay.
So the boss is like this big wind elemental with a person stuck in it,
Gotcha.
and then the ad that you kills that
Gotcha.
knocks you is another wind elemental, and it does like a big blowback that also goes up
Gotcha. Okay.
when you kill it.
Gotcha. Because I mean, the only reason I ask is that if you were falling through a floor, it
It had
automatically
to
is
be a
probably
good boss. Yeah.
a top 5 boss, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just I had to ask though.
Yep.
Well, nice. So, I mean, it sounds like they're at least not. Doesn't seem like any fights like broken, which I think is
Yeah.
like what we saw somewhat in Castle Nathria the first raid, like just some of the bosses there during testing were
Yeah.
either totally broken or like didn't work in the design they wanted, so they like ended up having to redesign it. So
Yeah.
good that the first set of tests went okay.
Yeah. We'll move on in a second, but I want to mention I do wonder
Yeah.
how much more they're going to be able to do because they don't have a whole new like batch of borrowed power systems to build. They're not building, legendaries and covenants and soulbinds and conduits and like sure they've
Yeah.
got talent trees and the new profession stuff, but like they're not having to invent whole new pieces of borrowed power at the very end of beta.
Yeah. Which yeah. I mean, I guess yeah. In that regard, I mean, it probably makes sense that raid testing is here. So there's not too much left for them to do now that we talked about it last week, but they put the design freeze on talents in, so it's really just now polishing up zones, and then getting the classes ready, right? So
Yeah, which there's a lot of bug fixing left to do, a lot of tuning
yeah,
left to do. Um, Brewmaster DPS is not that high. If you are not like you should, well, for one thing, you should be taking rank 2 of Neozao still. I know people hate it, but you should.
hmm
Currently, like the best way to build is you go and you get Chi Burst or Chi. I don't remember. It's the replacement for the Mechanicos Capstone, except that
okay,
it triggers off of everything instead of just weapons of order. So you just like abuse. And
nice.
you play Char Passions and South Salabims, and so you have it up 100% of the time. You get your Invoked Neozao, you get the rank 2 of that, and you stomp a whole bunch. And that's the like biggest way to do damage.
Stomp, stomp, stomp.
Stomp,
Yeah,
stomp, stomp. Um, and yeah, if you're not doing all of that, then your damage is kind of ass.
yeah.
Also, pushing Rising Sun Kick like a lot, a lot. Like it's on a 6-second cooldown and it hits harder than it. So you can do it's literally free. There's no resource cost, has no interactions with the kit whatsoever, but you push it every 6 seconds whether you like it or not because shit it does.
Nice.
I hate it. I hope they do something about it. It actually really like it makes it so the blackout combo stuff that they put in kind of doesn't work. You have to spend the GCDs pushing Rising Sun Kick
Right, sun
instead.
kick.
It
Gotcha.
just like has a bunch of like it introduces a bunch of issues into the rotation where you just have this free no interactions button that you have to push because it does too much damage.
Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah,
Nice. Nice. Well, cool. I mean, it sounded like testing went well. I mean, I did look at logs from like a healer perspective, but I mean, tuning is still to come. But I mean, Mistweaver looks outside of tuning, the couple of ways I saw some people play Mistweaver look really interesting. And there's
yeah.
essentially more than one way to play Mistweaver going in,
Nice.
at least build wise. So yeah,
So,
it'll be fun.
is it fist weaving or cast weaving? What are we dealing
Oh
with
my
here?
god, it's just
Ranged weaver or fist weaver, Anon?
I there's no such thing as being at range as a Mistweaver. God. No, I mean it'll be just whatever spells. Like there's the whole like spreading rems and doing some crazy stuff with clouded focus, and then I think Phalanx Stomp might actually be decent, you know.
Nice,
So yeah,
nice.
we'll see. We'll see.
Um, yeah. They. I also people have been fairly doomer about like protection paladin. Um,
Uh-huh.
so our tank comp this weekend or this past week in raid testing was me on Brewmaster, and then Lincoln from Hammer of Wrath on protection paladin, and paladin was tankier.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, I think this is where you get to see the real data of like what people have theorized might be good or not. So
yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, I guess I should caveat that with first day of raid testing, I meant to take high tolerance and forgot. So I was missing like a fairly significant chunk of stagger. But yeah, it was pretty jarring like how low stagger was. I was at 58% stagger without high tolerance, which is very low. Very,
Yeah.
very, very low. With high tolerance, you're like 60, 63, 64%, which is like gaining that much is like impactful.
hmm
Um, and it still like 64 is low.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's yeah, we'll see. I guess we'll see how the tuning goes. But yeah, no, Mistweaver looked good. So did Druid. Paladin, Holy Paladin looked terrible, but good for them. Hate Holy Paladins. Well, cool. Well, I guess we can jump into we had a couple other things we wanted to talk about, at least in the news. We can skip it for now since we're a little bit into this. And let's jump into the main topics, which is expansion release date announcement. So November 28th, it looks to be the release date. Again, the 28th, I believe, is a Monday, which most people might sound weird, but remember, it's global release, which is sort of what they did for Shadowlands. So
Yep.
Monday, November 28th at 00 UTC time, the expansion will release globally.
Yep.
So that's like 6 p.m. Eastern on the East Coast here, 3 p.m. Pacific in the afternoon. So on Monday. So we have a release date, November 28th, which is, I mean, before the end of the year. And
It's
it's
actually very close to being exactly 2 years of Shadowlands. Like
yeah, Shadowlands was a little bit before this, right?
November 23rd. I just looked it up.
Yeah. Gotcha.
November 23rd, 2020. So it is a year and 5 days, or 2 years and 5 days,
Yeah.
which is the closest that they have ever come doing the proper 2 year expansion cycle without just hardcore abandoning an expansion like in WoD. And even
Right.
WoD might have been like 2.5 years.
Yeah. WoD was, yeah, definitely longer than 2 years. But yeah, so we have like the announced date, which is awesome. So get your vacations in if you're going to be taking off for sure. And they also released like sort of all basically the major features of the expansion, the same thing, which we all knew about. But like noticeably missing is like any sort of borrowed power system. You've noticed that, like, which I
Yep.
think is really cool.
And I
Like, I
alluded
mean,
to that earlier. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they focus on the talent system. They focus on dragonfly or dragon riding, which is real. Actually, dragon riding is super cool.
Yeah.
Um, and like the new class, the evoker, right, being in there, and then the whole new continent, which I think is all the new stuff you expect. So,
Yeah.
no, I think it's really So we have the release date November 28th, which is not too. That's what 6 or 8 weeks away, basically.
Yep.
Um, about 8 weeks away, right after U.S. Thanksgiving,
That was
which is fun.
also the leaked release date. You remember we had leaks a few weeks ago with release dates for Overwatch 2, for announcements about Diablo 4, for Dragonflight pre-patch and release. And
Hmm.
this was the leaked release date, and the leaked pre-patch date was the end of October.
Yeah. So we'll see if everything stays the way it is, which it sounds like it will. We'll see that's a 4 week pre-patch. They also did release some information on pre-patch too, along with this. Very limited, but basically they said you can make evokers during pre-patch, which
Yeah.
is super cool. So um, that is like an interesting thing. You can now you can now just make your class early, level up your invoker, get it ready for your dragonflight experience.
They start at like
Um,
level 50. So it's like Demon Hunters where
yeah.
you can make a Demon Hunter during the final patch of WoD, or during the pre-patch of League, and you
Hmm.
started at level 98. Level cap in WoD was 100, so you
Yeah.
did your 2 levels and then you went and did Hellfire Citadel.
Yeah. Yeah. So it it's nice. It's nice that they have the release date out there. Nice you can make that evoker early. So yeah, so I guess we have now a date when everything is due to be updated by that we work on. Which is the fun part about it. I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, this date makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Like I don't think you'd ever see a pre-Thanksgiving release date, at least here in the US. I don't think you'd see it any earlier in November unless it
Yeah.
was the beginning of November, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Which I don't think is practical for.
no, not based on timing and where they're at. And then yeah, any later into November or December, you basically run into Christmas, like
Yeah.
turning things on for the first season. So awesome that we have the release date the 28th, and like you mentioned, pre-patch probably the end of October. The other big thing that they sort of mentioned as a part of this, which just sort of highlighting, is they are turning on with this reset, the October 4th reset, the 50% experience buff.
Yep.
So basically, if you have any characters you want to get up and ready to take into Dragonflight, level them after Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, depending on your region, um,
Yep.
because you'll now get 50% more XP. Which is, I think they did this with Shadowlands too,
They
which
did.
is just yeah.
There was
I think it
also
makes
like
sense.
at some point during Shadowlands, it was like towards the end of 9.5 or something. They turned it on for a couple, or maybe I'm thinking of Classic.
They
For
did it for
Classic.
Classic. They did it for Classic. So
That's it.
Um, yeah. But no, it's we have the release date. We also, as a part of this, have the season one release date. So season one, of course, is the start of all your Mythic Plus experiences, your raids, and PvP and things like that. So they released a bunch of information about season one. So season one goes live December 12th, which is 2 weeks after the official launch of the expansion. So plenty of time to level up and get ready, do your heroics, do your mythic zeros, get your gear, things like that. And then the raid releases on the weekend of December 12th, and everything releases on the week of December 12th. So you get first wing of, or sorry, you get normal, you get heroic, and you get mythic raids all at the same time.
You get Mythic
Um,
Plus with no eye level cap as well. So like you mentioned
yes,
Mythic
that's
Plus,
true.
but there's no, that's an important thing is there's no eye level cap. So very much like season 4, you can just jump in and grind. So if you wanted to, like that would be if I were going to take time off for Dragonflight, not really planning to. I'll do some half days and like shift hours around, but I'm not gonna like take. But if I
Yeah,
were gonna take time off, it would be actually that week of December 12th instead of the release, because you've got like 2 weeks to actually get to level 70, get ready to
yeah,
go, and then you could just like go nuts the week of season 1 with keys.
that's true.
Um, which is like that's what some people did in season 4. It's like my raid leader, uh, had a lot of the first week of season 4 off,
Yeah,
and like 2 days in had his Mechagon ring set, all like 298 tier pieces. Like we hadn't even raided yet, and this man
yeah.
was like pre-raid best from spamming keys.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it actually does make a lot of sense is to hold off and wait if you are going to take time off. For me personally, I just enjoy the leveling experience I think more. I
Yeah,
think for me the gear comes, it'll come. As
yeah,
long as I'm not like so far behind I'm hurting the raid, I think in most cases it'll be good. But yeah, this the simultaneous release does make, at least for like at least for my guild and probably for your guild, like the
yeah.
first week a little bit more interesting, right? In terms of like what you focus on in your main raid time. Because for at least for us, notoriously, like anytime a raid releases, particularly, and actually not particularly, but whenever a new raid releases, generally the only mandatory days we have are our 2 raid days. And then if any flex content will do if enough people sign on.
Yeah,
Right. So like if enough people are going to be there on like Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night after our raid week is over, we'll do like heroic flex
yep.
with whoever we have, right? And so with Mythic now, I wonder what our sort of, you know, raid leaders are thinking. Cause like, do you like the problem for us is since we do raid on Tuesday, it's like we probably don't go into Mythic right away on Tuesday, but like on Thursday, do we spend time to like do the first two bosses on Mythic maybe because they're a little bit easier, and then circle back, finish as much as we can in Heroic, and then use flex time to
Yeah,
clear Heroic? Yeah,
I think there's a lot of tuning questions that go into that.
yeah,
Um, and so some of it is that, for example, well, we'll talk maybe a little bit about the tier sets in a bit. Tier sets
mhm,
have been released. They should be on beta now. They are by and large fairly small increases. Like these are not the 25% increase tier sets from Sepulcher. By and large, there are
yeah.
exceptions, but we're not.
Mistweaver's one of those.
Um,
Fair.
we are not dealing with like your Sepulcher tier set. Like if you had half your raid with Sepulcher tier sets and half without, you were down 15% raid DPS because half of your raid didn't.
Right, right, right. Yeah,
Um, Whereas looking at these, you're going to be down like 3% if half your raid doesn't have 5% maybe. Which is still like sizable, but it's not like you know, it's not as huge. So
yeah.
I think hero. I think like we're gonna have to see. We also raid on Friday, so there's room for a bunch of people to go and spam keys.
Right. You'll
We
have
don't want to
yeah.
like plan around everybody going and like grinding keys first week because not everybody's going to be able to. We don't want to like be like, oh, sorry, can't come to Mythic. You didn't spend 20 hours in keys this week.
Yeah.
Um, but I I think that heroic is actually going to be much more about just getting eye level than getting tier this time around for us. And I think that is like what Castle Nathria was, where we did it for eye level, and then we, you know, just dropped it and did mythic. And that's gonna be, whereas in like Sanctum we are still doing heroic for the shards, for the domination set items, and then in Sepulchre
Hmm.
the set items were just so huge that you went back and you did heroic every week. Everybody had everything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would agree with you that I think tier sets, at least initially, are going to be much less of a thing. I'll say. I think too and we actually we haven't. Well, we'll talk about it in a second. But I think yeah, just in general, like the scheduling of the new raid will depend on some of the other things they have done, like the tier set design, like some of the new loot rules, right?
Yeah,
Because I think there's a little bit of an easier time than what you have today with some of that stuff. So,
yeah. Like being
um,
able, so we'll get into the loot rules, but it should be easier to funnel the people that have good tier sets, their 4 piece, and
mhm.
then be able to be like, we can go and then focus on mythic and then do flex content on the side for sets.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing too about this seasonal announcement that they sneakily got in there, and I don't know if you saw this, but dealing with Mythic Plus, they mentioned two affixes that are
Yes.
not coming
Yes,
back.
yeah.
So while they didn't announce the new affix, there'll be a new seasonal affix, of course. They did announce that both Necrotic and Inspiring will not be making an appearance in
Good
season one.
fucking riddance.
I'm fine. So I think inspiring less. I don't. That's whatever to me. I mean, I think there are certain trash packs where inspiring can be very, very difficult to deal with,
Yeah.
and it's annoying. But if you know it's coming and you focus, you can get around it. Necrotic though, like even as a non-tank, I am so excited for this. Like
The-
it is the like I don't know as a tank you hate it much yeah,
I
probably even
actually
more than I do.
so they nerfed it so hard in Shadowlands that it was almost a non-affix if you were playing one of the good tanks, right? If you
Yeah,
weren't playing, Demon Hunter or Pal, you know, or Warrior,
yeah,
then you didn't care about Necrotic. If you were playing Bear, you had your Ursox Fury Remembered legendary that just ignored it, which
right,
their talent actually doesn't ignore, which is funny because it's going away. Uh, the talent version of that legendary. Um,
yeah.
and the Blood DK is this tier being able to just parry everything, so they don't get it applied at all, and
Right.
then Brewmaster just dodging it, um, just dodging it,
Yeah.
and like I actually like I really did not like Necrotic back before they nerfed it 3 times, and then they nerfed it 3 times, and now it's like kind of free as a Brewmaster.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say it was once they made the change that it dropped when you dropped combat, I think at that point it became less of an annoyance, right? Because like there would be many times from a pull perspective, like and so I do most of my keys at least like after the start of the season in pugs anyway.
Yeah.
So like for Necrotic Week, it was always annoying to have a tank like number one, me drop a ring on a tank because they have 30 stacks and they just run back at the mobs, not
Yes.
away from them. And I'm just like,
Yes.
this is your cue to like get away.
Yeah.
Or in the old version of Necrotic, where they would, of course, want to go as quick as possible and like literally wait till their debuffs at like 1 second. They have 15 stacks, and then they get hit by the next pack, and it's immediately 16 stacks, and it's just like,
So it it's actually reset on combat since it Legion.
oh, really? It's been that long?
Yeah. The thing is that what a lot of tanks do is there'll be one ad left alive that people are killing, and they'll
Yeah,
go and they'll chain into the next pack,
yeah.
and so they won't have left combat.
Oh, see, I thought that was a fairly. I mean, I know it was not this
What they did is
expansion change, but
they
yeah.
reduced the duration of necrotic from like 7 or 8 seconds to 5, and
Okay,
that's probably
okay.
what you're seeing is like that 5 seconds, or like that timer ticking down of like this debuff is about to expire because they're running away from that last mob, getting ready to pull the next one. And they just pull it too soon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Fair enough. I thought the comment thing was, oh well, whatever.
yeah,
Fair enough. But no, I think everybody's happy that this sort of
yeah.
goes away.
Inspiring though, I hate more than any of the other affixes actually.
Really?
Inspiring is never fun. It is murderously unfun to pug. Like it's fine in a guild group for the most part. Like if
Right.
you're in with a bunch of, hard carry alts, maybe not so much, but if you're in a regular old guild group, it's fine. Like you can coordinate and deal with it and CC it, you know, do even somewhat fancy things where there's like two packs next to each other with Inspire, then you like you see both of the Inspired and then pull them together onto packs that don't have kicks. You know,
Hmm.
you can do things. Pugs is no. That is so awful NFX for
Yeah.
pugging. It is miserably unfun, and like that is just like that week you just don't pug keys because
Yeah. I
people
mean,
cannot do it.
yeah, and like I think whenever it is inspiring week and I get my like 115 done that week, I'm always it's always luckily it's generally the tank, but generally someone's like just kill the inspiring mob first. Like
Yeah,
hard focus, don't AoE, like just get rid
and
of
that
that
would
mob and then
that would
go from
always be
there.
my thing is I would like ideally touch of death the thing,
Right.
but then sometimes it's on this mob that's got like twice the health of everything else in the pack, and you kill it, but it's dying at the same time as the rest of the pack because it just has that much more health.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, good that there sort of seem to be changing up the affixes. I wonder if this is just a precursor to us getting two new affixes along with the seasonal. So maybe we'll see, new affixes come in. Um, I think now maybe the target is like maybe we get rid of Sanguine next.
Sanguine's
Or
fine.
or Storming.
Storming can go. Yeah, that one's
Yeah. Um,
Sanguine though is like there are dungeons in which it really really sucks because Sanguine is all about like area denial and managing that. But then
yeah.
is a huge disparity in the amount of space that you have, in the amount of area that you have to play with different
Right.
dungeons. And so like
Right. Yeah.
something like Grimrail Depot where you've got effectively zero area to play with Sanguine kind. But then something like, if you think back to Freehold where you had infinite space to play with,
Yeah.
it didn't matter
Or
at
like
all.
or like Gambit too. Like even
Yeah,
Gambit, you have plenty of like. There's never a space restriction in Gambit today.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, cool. And then I think we talked about this once, but we do have sort of the new dungeons for Mythic Plus 2 with the whole
Yep.
4 from Dragonflight and then 4 from older expansions. So the older expansion ones are going to be Halls of Valor, Quarter Stars, which you knew about, and then I don't think we talked about this, but Shadowmoon Burial Ground
Yep.
for Warlords of Draenor, and then Temple the Jade Serpent. I think we mentioned this one for
Yeah.
Mists.
There was the data
Um,
mining of this one.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they officially announced all 4 of them. Um, it'll be fun. I was talking to one of my friends about this, and they were sort of like, well, why isn't season one all 8, and then season 2 you sort of switch it up? And I think this is a better system anyway, just to open like this, because if this doesn't work out in season one, it seems like their idea of season one with this expansion is like try things and then we'll see wild changes, right? Because I think
Yeah.
they mentioned this, and maybe this is our little segue into tier sets, right? But I know when they did tier sets, they were very specific in that post when they released all the tier sets, in that they were like, these are specifically simple. They're
Yeah.
specifically very not crazy, not wildly changing anything because of all the talent changes that we're doing, and like other like
Yeah.
the talents being
Yeah.
such a huge change for us. And I'm wondering if that's their idea of like being iterative, being I guess more iterative,
Yeah.
something we've always asked for.
Yeah.
Um, and like that's how they're going to start this, because I think even we sort of I've made fun of like the season 4 hotfix changes they made, and like I on this podcast we've been like, oh, this week they're changing this again, but like that's I'd rather have that be the joke than like us go like, oh, like Cosmic Spark still broken 8 weeks in, right?
Yeah.
Even though I think they just fixed it, but like it's like Cosmic
Yeah.
Spark just broken, doesn't work here, like this boss, whatever. So I think maybe we'll see. I think I like this change of like pulling in old dungeons to start with. And that way the new dungeons feel new again in season 2.
Yeah.
And they basically elongate that Dragonflight content, so
Yeah.
it still feels new. Because even bringing back like the Mechagon dungeons now, like I'm just like I'm sick of doing like I like them, but like even like the limited amount of time we did those, or like even doing like Gambit again, I'm like I don't ever want to do streets, like or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. There's also
So
like there's a little bit of like everything being unlocked from the get-go, and the Mechagon ring set actually, and Junkyard being like the easiest key. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
all those things combined made Mechagon get worn out real quick
Hmm.
in a way that like I have not run very many docks and have not run um very many of I can't even Criminal Depot. I have not
Depots, yeah.
run any like I've run them. I've got the trinkets from them, but not anywhere as much as I ran Mechagon for those rings.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it'll be nice to like see some new dungeons and I don't know, see some old stuff too. I think is it's cool that they're bringing that back because I think it also I don't know, it's cool to see the way that the game has changed. I think from like those older dungeons to the newer stuff too.
Yeah.
Because like you definitely like I don't know if you notice as much with Karazhan to like Karazhan to Streets, right, or Karazhan to Gambit. But like I
Yeah.
feel like you will notice Temple the Jade Serpent to like any of the modern dungeons coming out of Dragonflight. Like the difference is going to be like pretty extensive.
I
So
am not looking forward to that gauntlet before the water boss and Temple of the Serpent.
yeah,
I'm
yeah, that's going to
also
be
not looking forward to the like lore walker boss at all.
yeah, I mean the first two are going to be rough. The final two are okay.
Yeah.
They're fine.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Uh,
Um
yeah. They did like last thing on that note. Heavy, 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 heavy. It's 2 Halls of Valor. Like
yeah.
minus 75% on a lot of percent on some. The one that I want to mention, like you can go and read the full notes on WoW. They're up there. But the one that I want to mention as one that I remember being a very big deal in pubs is the Storm Dragon at the very start of the dungeon. Like you would
Oh, yes, 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 yes,
like
yes.
you would go in a pug like 20, and the deciding factor of whether you completed that or whether you got to do more than 5 minutes of that key, not completed. Persia existed, right?
Yeah.
But like whether you got to do more than 5 minutes of that key was whether you could kill a storm drake before it murdered you.
Yeah. Forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Halls was ugh,
Halls
was
had
not the
some
biggest fan.
real rippy nonsense.
Yeah.
So that's what a
All
lot of
across
the
the
nerfs are.
board.
But that Storm Drake stood out to me as like, yes, we will not be resetting the key, 3 minutes in because the healer stood in the
Exactly.
Drake breath again.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh god. That'll be fun. Well, cool. I guess moving, I guess slightly forward here. I think we mentioned this in passing, but to jump into it, they did release tier sets for basically every spec. So we got
Yep.
all 38 class and spec tier sets.
Yep.
Um, and so, everybody's out there, they released it all. I think you said it's on PTR now, so you can pick these up, I believe.
They announced that it was going to be put on PTR. Literally, this came out with an hour left in raid testing on Friday. One of our
Yeah.
people did hearth out to Orgrimmar where it said it was supposed to be, and it wasn't there yet. So,
Gotcha.
not 100% sure. Uh, I haven't been back on beta to check, but it is supposed to be up. If it's not up now, it will be up on Tuesday or
Yeah,
Wednesday or
this
Thursday.
reset.
Whenever they do the next push onto this. Um, and yeah, a lot of these, like I've got it pulled up on the stream right now, but like just to give an example of what kind of complexity these tier sets are going. I'm going to talk about the Frost Mage one because it's conveniently located right above the monk sets.
Yeah.
But to kind of give you an idea of how simple these are, Frost's 2 set is Ice Lance and Frozen Orb do 10% more damage.
Yep.
And their 4 set is consuming one of their procs increases Blizzard damage by 25% and Frostbolt damage by 50% for 6 seconds. That's it. That's the whole set.
Very
Nothing
basic.
build defining. Like you can math out how much this is worth. It's, basic. It's simple. It's not very complicated. And that's intentional.
Yeah.
So then, we can look at the monk ones. And like the brewmaster one, the 2 set is hitting an enemy with tiger palm or spinning crane kick grants brewmaster's rhythm, increasing damage dealt and reducing damage taken by 1% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 4. So 4% damage reduction. And then the 4 set is for each stack of brewmaster's rhythm, Purifying Brew clears 3% more of your damage delayed with stagger. So at max stacks, your purifying brew becomes a 62% purify instead of a 50% pure. Again, not like huge. It's good, but this is not
hmm
going to be like the Sepulchre tier set, where the difference between having it and not was the difference between being able to like do high content.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, and I mean, I guess in terms of the like maybe we skip Mistweaver for one
All right,
second.
let's go to the
We
Windwalker
talk about
real quick.
Windwalker is I think a very similar case where it's just
Yeah,
Fist of Fury will increase the damage of your next two Rising Sun kicks or Spinning Crane kick by 30%. Just hit Fist of Fury, get an increased damage on your next two kicks is the two set. And the four set is Fist of Fury now enhances your next three Rising Sun kicks or Spinning Crane kicks. And the enhanced kicks increase your versatility during your next Fist of Fury by 5%, stacking up to 3 times, which means basically you'll get 15% verse next time you hit Fist of Fury, as long as you use Rising Sun kick or Spinning Crane kick 3 times before you do that. So again, to your point, flat damage increases basically,
yeah. I mean, this is
essentially.
like your is basically reads once you have the four set. This basically reads that your Rising Sun kicks and Spinning Crane kicks do 30% increased damage, and your Fist of Fury does 15% damage. Not literally, because like maybe you cast four Rising Sun kicks in between Fists of Fury or something, or four
Right.
Spinning Crane kicks, but it's like it's
Yeah, effectively that. Yeah, and then so those are nice, and then you get to the Mistweaver one, which is just eh, bonkers because it's so the basically the two set is healing from your enveloping mist, essence font, and vivify is increased by 15% on targets with your renewing mist, which seems like nice synergy of like you want to heal targets with renewing mist with these spells, you get an increase. The problem is it you're going to blanket your raid and renewing mist with some of your talents. I think the logs that
yeah,
we were seeing was like averaging 6 or so renewing mist on the raid. That's average, not like not your max amount. And
yeah,
so you basically will always have a person to target with renewing mist that is also injured that can use the healing. So
yeah,
it's just a lot of increase there. And then the four set is Essence Font and Vivify Healing are increased by 10%, which is probably two of your most casted spells, just
yeah,
10% more healing, which is great. And then a nice little buff, your renewing mists on targets healed by Essence Font are extended by 1 second for each heal. And so we need to test this, but assuming it like Blizzard tooltips work like it is, it basically is a minor increase in renewing mist extension. So it'll
yeah,
only, it seems like it should only extend on the bolt heal, not the hot part of Essence Font.
yeah, yeah,
If it heals from the hot part of Essence Font, it's honestly broken and upwelling becomes just ridiculous.
yeah,
But it's probably on the bolt heal, the
yeah.
main heal. So
That's what it reads like to me, is just like on the bolt.
yeah.
Um,
But but all in all, this is probably a solid just 10 to 15% increase in your overall healing, which is honestly massive from a set of set bonuses.
yeah,
It's just they're they're like I think it's Mistweaver and probably the Resto Druid tier because I looked through the healer ones. Like those are essentially like outliers in this, in that they are just
yeah.
so far and above every other healer
Wait,
and probably just
Resto
in
Druid
general
getting a
every,
good tier set? Say it ain't so.
it's very good. And even like this Mistweaver one, I think is heads and tails above even like DPS ones. I'd say it's probably the
Yeah,
best set bonus out there right now.
like the Brewmaster one. Notably does not have a damage buff. Actually, no, I take that back. I skipped over the fact it increases damage dealt and reduces damage taken by 1% second step. So it's got this 4% increased damage tacked on it.
Mhm.
But also if you take rank 2 of Invoke Nizo, then it also gives you 12% more damage contribution to Invoke Nizo.
Very
But
nice.
one thing I realized this weekend, actually, a little side tangent. Every talent across all talent trees got unique names, except rank 2 of Invoke Nizo. Which is like, I realized that yesterday. I was like, red flag goes up. Something's wrong here. This is
Yeah.
not supposed to be named Invoke Nizo, the Black Ox, because that's what the base talent's name.
Right, right.
This thing might be on the chopping block. This thing going away? Is it getting revamped? Did they just run out of time to rename it?
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
Which I know it's been complained about incessantly because of how
Mhm.
degenerate it gets. Of like, tanking the jailer and using slash sit to get crit so you have more damage to purify, can't dodge, and like turning off parts of your kit in order to funnel more damage into it's awful, awful.
Yeah.
But is currently how things work. To see that made me suspicious that maybe that talent is not long for the
Yeah, that would make sense if they're not giving it a new name. Interesting. But yeah, I mean, I guess tier sets are out, which is cool. And I guess as a part of this, Blizzard did release, and I guess this is all sort of in the same mix, but they did talk about the creation catalyst, which in Dragonflight's called the inspiration catalyst. And they basically said that this is going to unlock in week 6. So similar timing to Shadowlands season or Shadowlands Creation Catalyst, the Inspiration Catalyst will come back. Very similar very similar function or design where you take a piece and you can turn it into a tier piece of the same item level.
Yeah.
It just unlocks in week 6, which I think is polarizing for a lot of people. There's a lot of people who are, we'll say, more people are negative on this than positive, at least just based on the,
Yeah.
if you take Twitter and some of the feedback on the actual post itself.
Yeah.
But it's nice that they got ahead of it and said, like, here's what we're doing, whether you agree with their choice or not.
I think all right, so I think that there are 2 reasons I'm okay with week 6 creation. Number 1,
Hmm.
the tier sets are kind of medium. Like this is not the case of Sepulcher where you were losing 20-25% damage by not having your tier set. Where you were literally like going from, where you went from not being able to compete with other people in your raid that had them to
Hmm.
being able to compete with them, being able to compete on ranks, on Warcraft logs, everything, just due to having your tier set.
Right.
Um, so that's a good change. Um, also, I guess there's 3 reasons. Also, Christmas. This clock doesn't stop ticking if you take a
Yeah.
week off of raid for Christmas. Which Christmas is on a Sunday this year. December
Yeah.
25th is it Sunday? Raid on Sunday?
Let's change raid day.
We might like
Yeah.
we actually last year we had exactly the same thing. Or it was like Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve were raid days, and we
Yeah.
just like we took one of them off and rescheduled the other, and then it was Castle. It was Castle. Either way, last like I think it was Castle Nat 3 like that. Um,
Hmm.
and then like this time it's gonna be where they take, you know, it's like New Year's Day, not New Year's Eve, hungover but not lasted. And then uh Christmas Day are um on our raid days. So like probably one of them's gonna get rescheduled and the other one will like raid with what we can. Maybe we
Yeah.
take that time to do flex content like heroic where the comp doesn't matter as much and we can go and do our like mythic stuff on Friday and then heroic stuff on Sunday. We'll see. It
Yeah.
we'll see. But it is that's reason number 2. Reason number 3, loot changes.
Yes.
Want to get into that?
Yeah, of course.
So there's a big post for Skarzard, which is well worth a read. You're gonna cherry pick some elements of it. Um, and the short version is that we are getting group loot back.
Kind of.
Um,
Yay. That's great. Woo.
so group loot in raid is mandatory. Only method of loot distribution available. This is the classical need versus greed system that we had as of like Legion, before they turned everything into personal loot. And
Right.
with one little refinement, there is now a hidden like main spec off spec thing when you hit need.
Hmm.
If you need something and it's for your current loot spec, it is main spec. and you have higher priority. And if somebody needs it, and it's for their not currently loot spec, then it counts as off spec, but still higher than greed. And then there's
Right.
greed and disenchant um and it's kind of nice. It's actually very close to how we do loot in season 4. Like we're not trying to min max anything. We're just like we use RC, but everything goes up into RC if it's tradable, and then we just go off of the highest roll between like main spec and then off spec. We do a little bit more fine grained. We're like it's a major upgrade. It goes to main spec over somebody. It's a minor upgrade for main, so it's a little bit more granular. It's
Right.
very close to how we actually do loot. Um, but then, yeah, real important. There are no eye level restrictions on loot trading.
That's the best change, honestly. They could have left it as personal loot and just said they removed the trading restrictions. I'd be like, fine, whatever, that's perfect. Because yeah, I mean, this is I think to me like the group loot thing is sort of just it to me it puts in the way that we do loot in our raid. It just puts a step between master leader, which just means now everybody passes raid leader needs or whoever's passing out loot,
Yeah,
and then they're just responsible for passing out loot, and like that's the way that it ends up working. Where
yeah.
like, so it'd be cool if it was master loot and you could just like loot the boss, see the items, get excited, and then move on. But I
Yeah.
think it so
You
whatever.
can
But
you
this
can
whole
build your own master loot with this, definitely, like you said.
yeah, which is extra steps, which is annoying.
Yep.
But no, the loot trading restrictions I think are awesome. Like I think
Yep.
that was always the most frustrating part. Like particularly with the way that you have like we talk about like all the different ways to acquire loot now. Like you have like Mythic Plus and your Vault and stuff like that. And there were times like even in well, maybe not in season 4, but definitely in season 3, where like I had done a ton of Mythic Plus and had looted items from the raid that while technically were eye level upgrades, were not upgrades I would use, or if they were minor compared to what some
Right.
other people in the raid had. So it's like I'd like a whatever, like a piece that was like 4 item level lower than what dropped that I'd equipped, and then I couldn't trade that one piece. So it's like,
Yeah.
great, like now this feels bad because now I
Yeah.
have to equip it and then immediately unequip it, disenchant it, and I get to make some gold off of this. But this was like a 10 or 15 item level upgrade for somebody else in the raid.
Yeah.
And it's like, this sucks. So
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of this change. I mean, I'm less of a fan of the group loot being everywhere changes because I wish it would just be master loot. But I think,
I think that so I think it is good, a small good, but a good thing because it makes it less of like your loot when it's still tradable. Like you're not it's not your item until you actually win the roll.
yeah,
Versus like right now if you pug and somebody drop like an item drops for somebody, it's their item. Even though they could trade it. And some people aren't going to like actively post everything that they don't need up for roll. Some people
right,
you have to whisper and like it's really annoying. Like sometimes you whisper somebody and they're like, oh yeah, I need this, and I'm sure they get annoyed to get a like 5 whispers for an item they drop. But then other
right.
times, you whisper them and they're like, oh yeah, I don't need this, and they just give it to you. This is going to be a lot nicer in that sense of like, you kill a boss, items drop, and you hit need, and if somebody doesn't need it, they just pass. They hit greed or
Right.
disenchant. They don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I think there's that. Yeah, less of a like a mechanical thing, but more of that. What is it like the mental idea
Yeah,
of like trading away a piece of loot
yeah,
that no longer occurs, which I think is. I mean, in my mind, that's what they're going for. Like what I think they're trying to guard against, which I maybe I get this is like from a non organized raid perspective. I think there is a ton of negativity around master loot just in the idea of like you not knowing who the master looter is and you're joining this raid and like
yeah,
you could be there for 3 hours and eventually get screwed,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Just because somebody's friends with somebody else and they're going to give it to them. And I get that they want to stay away from master loot like that. I think group loot can still be abused, but I think there's still a chance that it isn't.
It's a lot harder to abuse. You have like it's not that you're not going to enter a raid and there's a master looter and they just give their friends the item. You
Right.
can
Yeah.
enter a raid and there's like a group of 5, and they all hit need on everything that they can. and then just
Yeah.
trade it within themselves, right? You can still do that.
Yeah.
But that's a lot harder. And there's actually an extra restriction. There's another extra restriction that I forgot to mention earlier about the need button.
Hmm.
You can only need things that, like, let's say a tier piece drops. You already have a
Yeah.
tier piece equipped that is higher eye level. You cannot need that tier piece.
Yeah.
So you cannot need downgrades. Direct downgrade. They were very specific. Like if it's a different chest item, but it's like if it's a different chest item or a different,
Hmm.
like if you've got weapon A and weapon B drops and it's technically an eye level downgrade, but it's got a better stat distribution or something, then you can still hit need on that because it's a different item.
Right.
But if it's literally the same item, you cannot need on it if you currently have a better one.
Right.
So that actually also solves a lot of that issue where like you can't have, four people come in on their mains and one like trash tier alt that they're all trying to funnel stuff to because those four people are not going to be able to need very much gear.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's true. That's true too. So there'll be less of that funnel thing, I guess. Um, but no, I mean, I think I ultimately or not ultimately, but to me, like this is just it is a good change. I think I wish it was really master looter, but like at the end of the day, it's effectively master looter if that's the way your guild's going to do things. Because the easiest way would just be to have everybody pass, and only those people who you know only one person who's going to pass out the loot roll need, then you can sort of do it as you move to the next, the next boss or go
Yeah,
through the next trash, or whatever it ends up being. So,
yeah, and
um,
that's fine. I think that's okay because that's
yeah,
the kind of thing also that you can automate. Where like RC right now will automatically put things up for roll if you get
hmm,
them with personal loot. It can be automatically passing on items when you're in a guild group. Um,
right,
and like you enter the instance and there's a pop-up that says my this group is running RC loot counts and you hit yes. And then it auto passes on everything and your loot master just like auto greeds everything. Um, and good.
yeah, yeah, and I think, yeah. So I mean, I think that's a great change. And then the way that, like, I think you mentioned the way that this hooks into Catalyst and even tier sets is that like you can now, it's much easier, I think, for people to, will be potentially easier for people to get tier sets. You want to do like
Yeah.
trading heroic tokens around the raid shenanigans,
You
or
won't have to do the difficulties backwards either, which is was
that's
a
true
really
too. Yeah.
awkward piece of sepulcher progression where like obviously you would want to do normal first to collect the eye level and the tier pieces and then use those to clear mythic or use those to clear
Right.
heroic. But because you could only trade if it was an eye level downgrade, that meant you had to do heroic first, so you got the higher eye level tier pieces and then go and do normal so that you could
Yeah.
trade the normal tier pieces.
Yeah.
So
And
this
that,
is
yeah, just, yeah, to avoid the fact of some person looting the same item twice, like looting
yeah,
a lower tier item and then the higher one right after in your next raid. Yeah.
right. And we still had stuff like first time we killed Lyovim, teardrops, and we can't trade it, even though we still had a couple people that could have used it.
Right. 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 Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's, I mean, and so, and I think at that point, then like the creation catalyst truly becomes that bad luck protection system for, at
Yeah,
least for raiders, right? I think, you'll still have the argument about this 6 week thing for creation catalyst for people who don't raid, but to be fair, like you you don't raid, so like for raid gear, like I guess in my mind, like tier sets are still considered like primarily a raid difficulty reward. So
yeah.
like if you're not going to do raid difficulty, then you shouldn't also be able to, at least in my mind, there needs to be like, I don't know, maybe I'm
It,
old
it's a way
fashioned.
to it's a way to funnel people into raiding in the early part of a patch, and
Right.
then once Catalyst comes out, you can go back to only or only. It's I mean it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's yeah. The other thing actually, before we wrap up, we're short on time, so I'll make this quick. But this means that there's no longer like class stacking to get items to drop.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that there's only one person that can loot a dagger because it's group loot. The dagger has the same drop chance as the ring.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is again a very cool, a very interesting change. The game hasn't been like this in a while, so it'll be interesting to see the amount of crying, or just the amount of like annoyed posts of like, hey, we have no hunters in our raid, but a bow dropped.
Yeah. At the same time, it means that you're not going to kill a boss and get 5 cloaks because the cloak is
Exactly.
the most likely one to see. Um,
Yeah.
they are also adding unique items, and I actually am mostly on board. Like they've talked previously about what they call the cantrip items that have the unique effects on them.
Hmm.
There's going to be some of those in this raid. Um, they are actually mostly implemented. They are in the raid, so once we get the
Yeah.
ability to like go and do normal, we'll be able to get them. Um,
That's actually so real quick, the cantrip, so, like, the unique item drops, that's interesting because they did that with corruption items in Nyalotha.
well,
Like, there was
it's not random. It's
right, well, no, no,
deterministic.
what I mean, there was but, like, for example, like, there was a mace
Oh yeah,
that
yeah,
dropped a specific unique corruption. There was, like, DPS weapons, I think, that
yeah.
had a
Yeah.
specific unique corruption.
The
And so
slappers.
so they've tried this before. I think this is actually
I mean,
underrated, very cool.
it's also like the Painsmith weapons or the rogue daggers from Sylvanas, the hunter bow from
Right.
Sylvanas. Technically, the Lyavin weapon for healers that nobody uses. Antumbra, Gavel,
Yes.
Jathis. There's actually a
Yes,
bunch
but they do
this
it,
expansion.
like yeah, actually, you're right, there are. But I think in this case, the unique part of it so the reason I brought up corruption is, like, those items just drop like, those unique healer items have a proc, but they drop at the same item level, right?
Right.
As everything else.
These are
In
going to
this
be
case,
higher eye
they're
level.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is cool. Maybe it makes it so you use them.
Yeah.
Like, even if the proc isn't interesting, right? You just
Yeah.
want the additional stats,
Yeah.
so,
Um,
um
but they did note, and I hate this. I hate this with every fiber of my being. They are going to be lower drop rate.
yeah, which, I mean,
It's so stupid.
I
Just make the regular drops. Just make.
I just
We just went through this with like Edge of Night and the Painsmith weapons just being lower drop rate because you didn't have as many people that could loot them, and
but
it
I
sucks.
But I think here the difference is gonna be that because it's group loot, the lower
Yeah,
drop rate might not be felt as hard, right? Because
yeah,
like
and that's true.
for
It's still going to be
for like
relatively speaking a higher drop rate than the rogues from Sylvanas.
exactly, because if you only have one rogue in the raid, then that one rogue is the only one that has a chance to do it, whereas now
Yeah,
it'll be just a part of the pool, just a lower percentage, you know, that extra
yeah,
requirement to have at least or have a rogue in. So,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it. I just think it's again, these are just I mean, they're to me, they're just cool things that they're trying that we'll see if they took out because maybe the idea too is like this is probably potentially what's going to happen is like these bonus items or these unique items are going to be terrible. Even with the item level increase, they're just going to be
well, a lot of
not
them
good.
have regular stats and then something else tacked on as well. So they're like actually
Well,
some of
that's
them
good. Yeah.
have like there's one that's a ring set that has like a fire proc on it. That is like or it procs off of fire damage, so a lot of things like Brewmaster Breath of Fire triggers it.
Uh huh.
Um,
Okay.
and so there's some things like that. Some of them are missing their stats and their only primary stat and the proc effect. They're still higher eye level, so you get the higher amount of armor, stamina, main stat on it. That does help compensate. There's also, if you remember, we talked about the data mining of there being like tiered eye level throughout the raid.
Yep.
That was confirmed as intentional. They are doing first two bosses drop lower eye level than the next two. Drop lower eye level than like the end wing bosses that drop lower eye level than the final two bosses.
Yeah.
And so
There's
there's like
four
this,
tiers now. Yeah.
yeah, this progression which would totally not work with personal loot and eye level restrictions. It just like,
Right.
or it wouldn't
Which
work with the eye level restrictions. I guess say personal loot.
yeah. And it's cool because this is kind of like what I wanted, what I talk about in terms of like item upgrades, except they just did it based on boss drops, which I think is
Yeah,
an interesting way to like slowly, you know, increase. I think they point it from like a rewards perspective, but at the same time, it makes the later bosses potentially slightly easier.
yeah,
Um, because you don't have that like bigger jump in item level from like items you get for most of the raid, than the final two bosses just being slightly higher.
yeah.
So
So
um
it's going to be a very interesting tier for a lot of
yeah.
reasons. For a lot of reasons, but there's also, you know, all this loot stuff. It's going to be like my guild has only, or like my raid team has only existed in the personal loot. Like it was founded in Uldir after personal loot
Mhm.
became mandatory. So the whole time we've done only personal loot. Like that's what we have managed, but we've done it like as like we have carve outs in our loot rules for like if something drops for you and you would roll major on it, you automatically get it. Like we
Right.
don't worry about their role or anything like that. So some of those things are going to change where like people aren't individually going to receive things. So we're going to have to go back through it, figure some things out. But I am overall like very excited.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I'm super happy about this. So
honestly, like they still got a lot of bugs to work out, right? But Shadow Dragonflight is looking really good.
yeah, I mean, and I think we spent most of this sort of talking about like the raid stuff, the loot stuff, and stuff like that. But I still can't praise dragon riding enough as just
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
the
that was one of the
coolest
things I was thinking
systems
of. Yeah,
they've ever put. Like just like regardless of like the loot. I mean, the loot changing's cool. Raids honestly will probably be bangers because generally raids are really good. But like I'm playing like funnily enough, like my initial planning for leveling, if I can do this, is just to go and get all the dragon riding upgrades and then actually start leveling because it's just like I think that's a cool thing to do first, and like then you get all the movement tech and all that type of stuff. Like maybe that's
and
like the
you
cool
do
way to do it.
have 2 weeks before raid
Right. So
opens.
there's
There's
yeah. So it's not like
time.
I need to like rush or anything.
Yeah. Um.
So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm and like I've done some leveling from like level 1 on beta. And like having the talent trees back for leveling is very nice. You know, you have those moments where you're like on a flight path or something. You just pull up your talent tree and you like figure out what you want to get next. It's,
yeah, yeah.
it's good.
Get to like click around, click the buttons every like you get a new thing to click every level, which is like
Yeah.
still to
Yeah.
this day like my favorite like
Yeah.
artifacts in Legion or old talent trees like
Yep.
pre kata. It's just still one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah,
So
and it's I have a feedback post that I'm working on for leveling because there's some weirdo like scaling nonsense as
gotcha.
you the combination of like world scaling and then little the world scales up but you haven't actually gotten a big power boost from leveling up because the talent for that level didn't do much for solo content. You know,
Gotcha.
you got
Gotcha.
ice block and ice block is great but it doesn't help you kill like 50 quest mobs in a row.
Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
but the quest mobs all scaled up and now they're actually like harder, and if that happens 2 or 3 row, so like the actual level scaling stuff kind of like them a little bit. um but yeah,
But there should be.
it's cool. i'm I'm really excited for Jack.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm becoming more yeah, like I'm always excited for new expansions, but I think there are some specific things that aren't just like new raids, new leveling that I'm excited for that I typically am not.
Yeah,
And we even I mean, and between you and I, we even touched on professions, which I
yeah,
think might be annoying based on some of the things I've seen, but also cool that they've started to revamp those things, which I haven't cared
yeah,
about professions in like
a
honestly,
decade.
yeah, like since drums were a thing in TBC, it was probably the last time I cared about having a specific
Yeah,
profession on a character. So
yeah, and yeah, so like, and we're over time, so I guess
yeah.
last thing I want to like fit in here,
Hmm.
this is the first expansion since like I've been paying attention that there's not really like a big thing that people are like very negative about. The one
Yeah.
thing that people are somewhat negative about is like some classes not having or having talent trees that have problems
Right.
that like or are like losing some things like protection paladins very doomer about their tree. But honestly, like looking at how things went in raid testing, like, and I know it's still pending tuning, but like it just shows how much like if they're tuned well, then Paladin is gonna be good too. And
Right.
like maybe the talent tree needs further iteration after that, but you know, it's not going to be like Shadowlands where some classes come in and have zero good covenant ability, or exactly one good covenant ability, or worse, two good covenant abilities that are good in different fights.
Exactly. Yeah. Then you have the swap. Yeah.
Yep,
No. Yeah. I think this is sort of a. It's funny. It's almost like a back to basics type expansion
it is. It very
that
much is. Yeah,
that the game probably needed. Right.
yep,
And like yeah, just I mean with me playing Wrath too at the same time, like I get maybe not similar vibes, but like very much like the idea of like the game just being slightly simpler in the systems around maybe the content you're doing.
yeah,
Like, well, to be fair, PB content. I'll just say the content I care about, but like raid still being fairly complex. Dungeons still having like way more abilities than the older dungeons ever had,
Yeah,
right? I think that's cool, but the actual like classes and like things you do
yeah.
outside of that is it being simpler is
There's also
cool.
like
So
I have a friend that just came back because they've seen the talent tree stuff for Dragonfire. They're like, oh look, it's actually finally worth coming to the game.
yeah,
and
yeah.
and I'm trying to help them like get caught up on Shadowlands stuff, and it's just like
It's like so many things that like
I
it's
don't
like
know how
Torgus,
you
like
how you figure this stuff out if you don't like aren't
yeah,
heavily invested. Like how do you figure out legendaries? How do you figure out like conduits and covenants and like the stuff that we know? Like there's the vendor that sells you the 278 conduits. Right? They
yeah,
didn't know that, but they had the resources to go buy it, so they could get it.
yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so much, and the Warlock Gate thing.
Yeah, the Warlock Gate
Which we still
toy.
we still have raiders to this day that come in and are like, "How do you click the gate so fast?" And I'm
Oh,
like, "You
yeah, that's actually one thing I couldn't figure out. There's supposed to be a new hotkey in beta that lets you like use it without needing the toy. I
oh, okay, cool.
couldn't find it.
I'll have to
But I
check
was
it out."
trying to
Yeah,
set it I was trying to set it up mid raid. I was like, I'm pretty sure we talked about that on the podcast. Didn't actually
yeah,
find it.
maybe we'll have to
I'm
see.
I'm
Yeah, I
gonna
don't
have
know
to
for
go
sure,
back and look.
for sure. But no, I mean, honestly, super positive on this expansion. So they've been knocking it out of the park.
All right, but that is going to be it for the show today. We are now 10 minutes over. I've been talking about us running out of time for 15 minutes now. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's good. It's good. I'm happy. We
Thumbs
are
up around the board.
looking forward to pre-patch being soon. Yeah. And
4 weeks,
yeah,
hopefully.
if you enjoyed this show and you want to support it and the other work that we do over on the Peak of Serenity, which we're going to be doing a whole lot leading up to pre-patch, uh,
Yes.
you can support it over at our Patreon at patreon.com/Peak of Serenity. And of course, come and join the Discord. Brew Lounge has been talking about F1 all day, so go hang out with the Mistweavers or something. Or if you like
Mr. was
F1,
talking
go
about
and hang out
F1.
with the Brewmasters because they are like all over it.
Yeah.
And of course, there's our Dragonflight Brewmaster channel that you can go in and mess around with talent trees and post it and see what people think and yell about whether Charred Passions is going to be the only talent build.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That is true.
that is it for today. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.